The God Valley incident is the greatest tragedy and the most important event in One Piece history pretty much since the Void Century itself. This one event saw the downfall of Emu and Zbec and the entire Davy Clan, and it also set the most significant players of the next generation in motion: Dragon, Kuma, Shanks, Teach, Shamrock. The list goes on and on. Pretty much everyone important in One Piece in Luffy's era, they all got their big start right here on God Valley. So in this video, I present to you the entire story and everything that happened here, and it all starts, of course, with one man, Zbec. Because this big softie right here fell in love, giving a whole new meaning to Romance Dawn, baby, because Rox met a pirate named Idis, and it was game over. He suddenly didn't care anymore that the single most beautiful and sought-after woman in the entire One Piece world had taken up residence on Hachinosu, his home turf, because Rox now only had eyes for the baddest baddie Ares, and they even had a baby on the way too. Tiny little baby Teach here, who is much cuter than his adult self, I will say, but as we quickly saw, this absolute family man knew the dangers of getting involved with somebody on this level. Why was it dangerous, you ask? Well, you see, Zbec was keeping a sneaky little secret from all of us. Behind closed cabin doors, his crew was none the wiser to his actual lineage. Rox, you see, wasn't a Rox at all. He was a real member of the Davy Clan, a direct descendant of the legendary Davy D. Jones. Meaning that this family had survived in the criminal underworld of One Piece, hidden away from the eyes of Emu and the world government for probably centuries. Which raises just so many different questions, really important ones also, like, who the hell is Davy Jones actually, and what's so special about the Davy Clan to begin with? Do they actually have some kind of special power or properties, or do they just have a really badass great-grandpa? Now, there's probably even more greats in that sentence, to be honest with you, but you kind of get the idea. Davy Jones seems to be an absolute legend, on par with Joy Boy, at least according to Rox talking to Emu. And speaking of them, Emu very clearly has this vendetta with the Davy Clan, and Zbec figured that Hachinosu wouldn't be safe since he was there now. So he made arrangements for Idis and his newborn son Teach to be protected, hiding them away in his homeland of God Valley, where they could hopefully live safely amongst Rox's fellow Davy Clan members, while he was actually busy tending to important pirate activities on Hachinosu. That plan being, and I quote here, get 2 devil fruits, stuff one of them Harold's throat, raise the frozen Galela giants, and take back the peak of the world. Unfortunately though, someone threw a pretty big wrench into that plan. Someone named Figureland Garling. Because while out on a, as we found later, a not so holy night outing, Garling just so happened to find God Valley and discovered the hidden Davy Clan living there. And there he then used his ultimate technique, Holy Night Riz, to get a local woman to fall head over heels for him. And we don't know this, but I'm just gonna tell you guys, it's probably the hair that did it. The ladies can't resist the crescent moon bob that he's rocking. Too hot to handle, I guess. And apparently this guy slings hawk, because right away he knocked up this dynamite redhead here. Now, I gotta say, I'm not exactly sure how that works, since Oda still hasn't revealed that yet. There are theories out there, but my sources tell me it has something to do with the birds and the bees, and I'm not sure how that falls into the power scaling of One Piece, but we'll figure it out one day. Anyways, deciding to father a child with the express intention of taking the babies away and slaughtering their mother, and the entire island in the process, is pretty cold even by Celestial Dragon and even by Figureland Garling standards. Did I forget to mention that he's absolutely totally evil? Yeah, he is totally evil, because while Shanks and Shammy's unnamed mom was cooking up the boys in her tummy, Garling got to work in the meantime. He went back to Marijua to inform the Gorosei that they'd finally found this very elusive Davy Clan they've been hunting, thinking that the Great One, Emu, would be extremely pleased. And you know what that means? It's party time. Now, unfortunately, the Celestial Dragons, as expected, planned some really terrible parties. They named God Valley as the next location for their traditional hunting game, gathering slaves and rare devil fruits as prizes for the competition. But most notably, operatives of the government snuck onto Hachinosu thanks to Wang Zi, aka Ochoku, betraying Rox, and they managed to kidnap the world's most beautiful woman Shaki, killing the original gangster Don Marlon in the process. By the way, RIP to a real one here. Really sad to see him go that way. Anyways, pretty much everyone in the pirate world was absolutely dismayed at Shaki's disappearance, simply beside themselves without the most beautiful bartender on all the oceans. And so quite literally, all the greatest pirate crews set out to find the ultimate treasure, a really hot lady. Now meanwhile, a few of the slaves were actually busy concocting a plan of themselves to earn their own freedom. As we learned during the Kuma flashback, Ginny and Ivankov planned on hijacking some transmissions equipment and announcing to the entire world some of the very fabulous and very powerful prizes available at the God Valley hunting game, meaning it was now on as the Rocks and Roger pirates both sailed for God Valley to take Shaki back, also along, of course, with a whole lot of treasure. And with the news that Rocks and Roger were also heading to the island, of course, Fleet Admiral Kong decided that the Marines were gonna need some serious backup, so Sengoku put in a call to the soon-to-be hero of the Marines, Monkey D. Garp. Now, Dragon's daddy here was soaking up some sun with bikini babes apparently and could not be bothered to go really, didn't really care about the Celestial Dragon's little field trips, in his words. However, Sengoku let him know that Roger was actually also heading that way, and Garp immediately changed his tune like that. It's actually really funny. He just sets out right away to see his to see his rival back to God Valley, right? The Celestial Dragons arrived on the island with the protection of the Marines. The Marines were tasked with rounding up all of the island's citizens to tranquilize them. To which Dragon actually rightfully, as the only person there, apparently was like, what are we doing? To which his commanding officer informed him it wasn't his job to think, he was just supposed to, follow orders. Order 60, I forgot the order from Star Wars. Order 66? 69? Let's just say the Order of God Valley was Order 69. Anyways, 200 world nobles participated here, including several of the Holy Knights, some of which we'd actually already met before in Elbaf, like Shamrock, Summers, and the Sword of God, Gunko. Honestly, I still can't quite get over just how hype Gunko's title is. Even if it's meant to be a squire, it's literally so sick. I want to be the Sword of God. Anyhow, also in attendance was of course another member of the Menmire family and Saint Lasermouth Maffy here, and some are still unnamed, like Big Yeti Guy and the one who wears a skull, because he's the good guy, I guess, and overseeing it all was one of the members of the Gorosei, Saint J. Garcia Saturn. And on the other side were of course a whoopin' 100,000 civilians called rabbits in the context of the game, with 150 rare rabbits and 13 super rare rabbits, which I gotta say, A is just beyond screwed up by the Celestial Dragons, but B is also actually pretty great and poignant commentary by Oda, because this is like tactic number one straight out of the G word that YouTube doesn't like playbook from regimes who commit this kind of thing on our real planet Earth, right? They dehumanize the victims using euphemistic language to treat them as animals or monsters, or insert slur here, whatever it may be, so that the people carrying out these absolute atrocities don't think of their victims as even being human at all. Don't worry though, One Piece definitely isn't political, right? Alright, once the nobles arrived, Garling reunited with his baby mama and said hello with the customary Celestial Dragon greeting, stabbing. Like all divorce dads, he had a better, hotter wife in mind, in this case Shaki, so instead of taking her to court, Garling just sliced down his ex-lover and took full custody of baby Shanks and Shamrock. I guess he really is judge, jury, and executioner, quite literally, huh? And since I brought them up already, let's also quickly talk about the world's most powerful babies real quick. And we gotta start with the question, did Virulent Garling actually purposefully get with a member of the Davy Clan member so that he could get his hands on some half Davy, half Celestial Dragon kits? Like, it's not confirmed, but their mom was on God Valley and probably from God Valley, right? Doesn't that basically guarantee that she's part of the Davy Clan? Surely she wasn't just like hanging around here, right? I couldn't tell you if it's more Oda to make them double whammy special babies, or more like Oda to subvert expectations here and actually go, nah, their mom was actually just a normal person, just traveling, being a tourist here, and Garling messed up, which actually raises another huge question. Does this make Shanks a Nepo baby at the top of the Nepo Peace world? A child of destiny, if you will? Alright, enough Goo Goo Gaga baby nonsense now. They didn't really do anything important, of course, during this flashback, except, like, be alive, I guess. On the opposite side of the size spectrum, though, from a literal baby, let's check in on the giants. Manu, there were no giants on God Valley. Well, wait, there's context, right? While setting up this wicked game, this hunting game on God Valley, the Marines actually stationed King Harold of Elbaf outside the island in order to prevent rocks from reaching the island to begin with. Now, you probably won't believe this, but this plan didn't work. Instead, the two had a chat, and since Harold was like basically Rox's one true homie, he spilled all of the secrets about his lineage, about how despite being one of the most feared people in the world, he actually wasn't after any treasure. He wasn't even after Shaki. The only reason that he actually had pulled up to God Valley to begin with was to protect his wife and his son. And I gotta say, positive masculinity role model, Rox is not what I had on my bucket list going into this flashback, but young men, please take notes. Meanwhile, the Celestial Dragons are off to the races, the hunt, and like, listen, I know that when Oda starts in on a flashback, right, things are about to get very emotional. I think we all know this at this point. I've been reading this series for a very long time, but watching the Celestial Dragons carry out this slaughter of thousands of innocent people, I really gotta say, this one was on a whole different level of messed up from anything that's been portrayed in the series ever before. Seeing these freaks glee as they take the lives of their slaves for sport is truly beyond grotesque. It's disgusting, it's really haunting. It's some other adjectives that I really don't think I should say on YouTube, and I really can't think of anything that comes close to how messed up these chapters were when they actually came out in the story. Like, maybe the Plague from Lost Black story? Still probably not even that. I mean, One Piece has made me feel so many different feelings over the years. Sadness, joy, hype, of course, a lot of hype, but this was probably the first time it legitimately made me feel disgusted. Like, I need Luffy to punch way more Celestial Dragons after this, please. Speaking of Luffy, what was his dad actually up to here? Because while the vast majority of Marines very happily were following Order 69, Dragon, aka the one Marine who actually uses his brain and has a conscience apparently, was absolutely mortified by the atrocities that he had to witness on this island. Which, again, by the way, should just be the normal reaction to seeing a group of wealthy elites hunting other human beings for sport. Now, luckily, he had a gun and a new pair of sneakers and was ready to make some difference here. Since somehow it just wasn't enough for Oda to make God Valley an epic pirate battle, because, God Valley wasn't just a clash between Emu and the other legends of the past era. It wasn't just a Shaki rescue mission or a Kuma origin story. God Valley wasn't just the birthplace of Shanks and Shamrock, it was the birthplace of the revolution itself. Viva la revolution, right? Really, it's totally wild that all four of the original Revolutionary Army founders, Dragon, Kuma, Ivankov, and Ginny, were all here on this island on God Valley. Kinda wild how the corrupt and violent actions of a government will inspire people to rise up against that same corrupt government. Definitely not something that has ever happened in real life. Luckily, I'm just not seeing how people think that this is political at all. It's a story, guys. Chill. Anyways, Dragon, wrought with guilt, finds Shanks' mom, who pleads with her last breath for him to please save her children. I'm tearing up even reliving this, from, the monster incarnate that is Vigilant Garling. And he was just about to get his opportunity because the Rocks Pirates and the Raja Pirates were here, baby. Which means that Operation Get Shaki and as much treasure as you can possibly carry was a go. So, much to the Celestial Dragon's real disappointment, the Marines and Holy Knights switched from game mode to trying to shelter them in the middle of the island, while the pirates' arrival sent the entire island of God Valley into absolute chaos. And in that now started chaos, Monkey D. Dragon found the two Vigilant babies and went running. And then things of course get even crazier once Dragon's Big Papa Garp finally pulled up along with the single biggest goat in One Piece, Bogart here. And at first it really seemed like absolute chaos and carnage, but before long Garp in his eternal wisdom actually started to recognize what had actually been going on here. So he picked up the phone, called Sengoku and was like, hey man, do you actually know about what was happening here? To which Sengoku of course basically just told him, yeah, probably don't talk about it. The last person who did say something kind of disappeared and never came back, which, okay, cool. Seems totally normal, like an organization you'd want to remain a part of for several more decades, of course. But it's not just the pirates versus the government out here. This whole thing is just pretty much a battle royale type of sorts. In fact, a lot of the pirates who show up think that they can get more treasure and make a name for themselves if they take out some of the other big shot pirates. Now, spoiler alert, this doesn't really work out for them at all, but at least it did bless us with a goated panel of Big Mom, Kaido, Whitebeard, and Shiki all together tearing things up. And I gotta say that this was truly one of my all-time favorite things about the God Valley flashback in general. We've gotten super familiar with these legends once they're much older, of course. Once they were introduced in the story, we saw a very old and a very sick Whitebeard lay waste to Marineford. We saw Kaido and Big Mom as the big bads of arcs, you know, in opposition to Luffy. We saw Shiki in a movie. Shiki, please come into the main story again. I kinda need you. But seeing all of these crazy powerhouses back in the day, in their prime, or even right before their prime, you could say, forced via Davy backfight to be on the same crew despite having, you know, big captain energy themselves, even then, was just a real pleasure to read, I would say. For real though, rereading Marineford, Whole Cake, and even Wano is probably gonna hit so very different, having, you know, completely new perspective on what these characters were actually like when they were younger. I've been saying this a lot, but I might just need to do a whole series of arc reviews, you know, pre-time skip even, you know, after all that's been revealed recently, because it feels like it changes so much about the entire story in retrospect right now, right? Let me know in the comments if you'd actually watch any of those, because they'd be probably a real blast to make. I'd love to, you know, dig into that. Skypiea? Oh. Now, while the future Yonko were taking down current fodder though, the Shanks and Shammy rescue mission was still very much on the way, and Dragon was about to run into some real trouble from Saint Maffy, one of the new Holy Knights introduced during this flashback. Turns out that she'd been tasked with a really important baby collecting mission and lasered Dragon really hard, meaning that she did manage to take Shamrock, but luckily for baby Shanks, she didn't know that there were actually 2 babies up for grabs. And then thanks to a very random swing from Whitebeard cutting Maffy in half, Dragon was actually spared his life and was able to run away with Shanks. As we see though, the very nasty regeneration powers they have didn't keep her down for very long, but she wouldn't do anything significant for the rest of the entire incident. And in the meantime, Garp was just straight up a nuclear option. Like, the man is just an army of one. Very, you know, not kidding, it's insane. He casually scares the heck out of future Yonko, who didn't want to take literal hours to fend him off. Dragon even saw his dad being a nightmare, and what's crazy to me is that him recognizing Garp and calling him his dad, it's technically the first time we've ever actually got confirmation officially that Garp is Dragon's biological dad. We've kind of known, but I still wanted to throw it out there since they do look pretty different. There was, you know, always a part of me that kind of just thought Garp might actually be Dragon's father-in-law, but yeah, at this point, we just have to keep wondering who all the moms are instead. So, back over to Shaki. She was preoccupied with my current contender for the most hateable Holy Knight ever, Saint Shepherd Summers, because this absolute loser decides that he's gonna just kill Shaki since he's certain that Garling will win if Summers can't have her. Then this absolute loser just decided he's just gonna kill Shaki since he's certain that Garling will win the game, and if Summers can't have her, then no one can have her, apparently. So what Summers didn't quite count on though was the Dark King Rayleigh, my favorite character in One Piece, pulling up for the heroic rescue of the damsel in distress. And in one of the coldest panels that Oda has ever drawn, in my very biased opinion to be honest, but still, Rayleigh cleaves and dismantles Summers, securing his love. which honestly really surprised me because with Summers and Scopper's previous interaction we had on Elbaf, it really seemed to me like the two of them had some history, so I kind of wonder if the Raja pirates had more run-ins with the Holy Knights after God Valley even. Also a little sidebar here, it's kind of super weird, right, that Summers is so surprised to run into Scopper Gaban on Elbaf, the island where he lives. Like, the Holy Knights intel network seems to need some improvement, I think, but anyways. Back to Shaki and back to Rayleigh, because their reunion is honestly really sweet. As the occasional enjoyer of some romance anime and manga, I gotta say I really like this entire interaction. Shaki has appeared throughout this flashback as such a strong presence, never showing any weakness whatsoever, just being one of the coolest characters, but once Rayleigh rescues her, she's finally able to let her guard down and cry and, you know, talk about how scared she was through the entire ordeal. I think it's a very underrated and very sweet moment between these two characters. I mean, Rayleigh and Shaki are for sure the best couple right now in One Piece, right? Like, still together to this day, just being in love, laying low in Sabaody, doing their thing in the bar. Kinda love to see it. But what I hate seeing is Ivankov being so close to become a cool dragon just to get robbed last minute. Because amidst all the chaos, Kuma and Ivankov are stealing some of the most valuable devil fruits. Kuma, of course, with his very broken pawpaw fruit, and Eva with the azure dragon fruit. But before Eva can actually take a bite, Big Mom hits them hard and takes the fruit, saying, "Dang, I hope I can feed this one to Katakuri," and then on the side, Kuma gains his paw powers. So I guess, well, Dragon Eva just wasn't meant to be. After all, if he'd eaten that fruit, we'd never have gotten Crocomom, so it's all worth it, I guess. After Big Mom's interruption, Saint Saturn also confronts a young Kuma, mainly to toss out some very pointed racist comments against the Buccaneer clan. Classic old white bearded guy who then gets possessed by the devil. Is that classic? Maybe. I don't know. Big Mom, though, gets her comeuppance pretty quickly when she looks at that devil fruit and doesn't see Kaido coming, who bangs her in the head and then takes a greedy bite, depriving us also not just of Eva, but also Dragon Katakuri. And absolutely thrilled with his new cool dragon bud, he takes off to show off to his captain and pretty much the whole island in the process too. And speaking of his captain, let's now actually check back in with Rox D. Zbec. Now, by this time in the storyline, he's found his wife Idis and his son Teach, but they've been chased by Davy Clan members who had been transformed into demons by the Domi Reversi. Leading the charge, though, is no one other than Garling, and who I can only assume is his side piece, riding on some ducks. Now, just gonna let that image sit on screen for a second here. That's right, Garling on a duck with some demons behind him. Specifically, those demons turn out to be Zebec's literal family, either parents or grandparents, it's never quite clear, which just adds this whole new level of tragedy and being completely messed up to the entire incident. But what really gets my theory brain tingling every time is the fact that Emu technically was not on the island by this point, right? So who Domi reversied all the Davy Clan? Can the other Holy Knights also use this technique? Was it Garling or Gunko who transformed them all? I mean, it really seems like this very broken ability is not exclusive to the big bad guy after all, which definitely, if it turns out to be true, spells some real trouble in the current storyline too. But it's either that or Emu, I guess, popped in real quick to do this and then popped back out and then popped back in, which is kind of weird as hell as well, so I don't know. Rox tells Idis and Teach to go on ahead and beats back Garling off-screen. That must be where Blackbeard got his off-screen no mi from as well. Like father, like son, I guess. I really would have liked to see it, but my guess is that, you know, Zbec still has some power, maybe a devil fruit, that Oda still doesn't want us to see, which is why he mostly, you know, off-screened a lot of Zbec actually whooping people's butts with it. So I feel like there's still a reveal to, you know, be seen at some point in the story. Now, while all of that is going on a different part of the island, Dragon is still trying to escape with Shanks, but unfortunately, Captain John causes some magnetic interference. Using nothing other than the magnet fruit, he's trying to draw all of the island's treasure to himself, but actually catches Dragon's rifle as well, hurling him through the air, and when he lands, he's already lost track of Shanks. It's also a little bit weird because he's now holding a log instead. So, like, did Baby Shanks just pull out a substitution jutsu? Shouldn't have done that. My point is, how did this even happen? Anyways, like, the other Rocks pirates don't like Captain John's hoarding habits, and there's some heavy infighting between some of the crewmates, and this is where I get another one of my all-time favorite touches of God Valley, which is finally seeing some of these legends devil fruits, right? As we saw, Captain John is confirmed to have the magnet fruit, which is actually very funny because it means that both of its users go by the very unimaginative epithet Captain John, Captain Kit. I kind of swear, if we get the reveal that his full name is Captain John Kit and I have to redraw my big One Piece family tree, I'm gonna absolutely lose it. And I put a lot of effort into this. Anyway. I will say it is a really sweet detail from Oda though. We all know that he loves to name characters after real life pirates, and there are 2 real life Captain Kits. Captain John Kidd, who was the father of Captain William Kidd, who Eustace Kidd is actually based on. Do I actually think that they're father and son though? Yeah, no, not really. I kind of think it's a cute nod from Oda, probably. After all, they have different hair colors, so in One Piece logic, that means it's obviously impossible for them to be actually secretly related. Now, it turns out that the magnet fruit is not the only devil fruit that shows up that we're already familiar with. Ganzui here was shown to have Mr. Five's bomb fruit. Gilbaster, that Sly Dog, apparently also had Perona's ghost fruit, which is actually super cool as a nod to his origins from the, one-shot manga Wanted that Oda drew, where he can actually see ghosts. Way to keep it consistent, Oda. Love how, he's kind of in the story now, same as Ryuma. And it's also awesome seeing all of these fruits reappear with their old users in these flashbacks. The only problem that I really have with all this is that I just had made a video before the God Valley flashback started going over all the devil fruits that have multiple known users, and then we get all of this. So I guess I'm just gonna have to update that one eventually. Not right now though. Anyways, I'm also really wondering who of these characters actually died on God Valley right here. Remember, on Thriller Bark, we actually see zombies made from the bodies of Captain John, Ganzui, and Gilbaster, and it doesn't seem like they died just yet, but especially seeing Perona's ghost fruit just makes it feel like the entire Thriller Bark is God Valley stocks are kind of really going through the roof. And before I get into this next bit, I kind of have to admit, I haven't actually talked about one of the key players of God Valley at all, really, if you haven't noticed. So let's just take a minute, shall we, to talk about the man himself, the future Pirate King, no biggie, Goldie Roger. And let's be real, the dude did pretty much nothing. Like, I hate to say it, the reason I haven't talked about Roger is because after he looked super cool jumping onto the island, yeah, he then got trampled by his crew, and then when we finally see him again, all he does is play ultimate wingman for Rayleigh holding off Whitebeard while that whole Summers interaction is going on. Now, quite frankly, I am super surprised at the lack of Roger presence in this entire story, right? Shocked even. Speaking of which, the Holding Island was in for a big Conqueror's Hockey shock since Emu decided to handle the situation personally, just how we saw on Elbaf. Pretty much the old Thanos, I'll do it myself treatment, I see. Well played, Mu. But much to the Marines' confusion, Saturn then goes beast mode, and then possessed by Emu has the King of the World's shadowy figure rise out of him like some crazy eldritch horror, which I love personally. All the observers wonder whose side this beast creature monster is on, only to find out that the answer turns out to be none when it starts killing Marines and pirates indiscriminately. Yay. But there were also plenty of non-fodder characters who wanted to actually see what that insane hockey blast was all about, and in one of the most legendary panels in the entire series, I think, Roxy Zbec, Edward Newgate, Charlotte Linlin, Kaido, Garp, and Roger all give Emu everything they've got with a combined attack. And what's especially wild here is that it's the very first named attack, by the way, we've ever gotten from Whitebeard, and it'll probably remain the only one unless Oda keeps it coming with the flashbacks from now on, but I don't know, might be the only one we ever get. Now on the flip side, my favorite joke from this entire flashback also happens here when Kaido, having not figured out what to name his move yet, in Japanese at least, just screams the word dragon as he fires off a Boro breath, which might be his first. What a clever choice by Oda. Really appreciate it. All these legends have their crazy attack names. Kaido just goes dragon. I also absolutely love that even though Emu is clearly possessing Saturn's body, one of the Goro say Garp sees this literal devil and just punches, no question asked, despite many of the other Marines telling him that he probably really shouldn't be doing that. And actually even more wild than just that, the combined power of 6 of the all-time strongest characters in One Piece history did nothing. Nada. Like, what is it actually gonna take to be able to even scratch Emu, yet alone defeat them? But if you know me, you know I'm not just in it for the big attacks and the crazy power scaling. I'm also mostly here for the lore. Luckily, the conversation that we get between Rocks and Emu sure gave me some delicious little lore morsels. Lore souls, if you will. Emu recognizes Davy Clan as Davy Jones, calling him that name, just like the Gear 5 transformation reminds him of the old Joy Boy days. He apparently sees Zbec as a real successor to Davy Jones, or even a reborn version of him. I think it's kind of unclear whether Emu literally thinks that Zbec is Davy Jones, or whether he just looks like his ancestor, or whether their presence or haki or aura or whatever gives off kind of the same vibe. Right now, it's a little bit uncertain. It would be kind of wild to think, though, that Joy Boy is literally alive within Luffy and Davy Jones is literally alive in now Blackbeard, I guess. Anyways, their conversation digs into how Davy Jones was once a king of the world. Emu actually, though, denying this, whether it's out of jealousy, pettiness, or what, or maybe it's just true. My personal feeling is that Davy did in fact stand on top of the world, a spot that Emu wanted, and then of course also took for himself. But we also get to learn about the will of Davy, which I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say is not the same as the will of D, because that would make his full name Davy Jones, and I just don't like that, I think. But Zbec is determined that someone will fulfill a long-standing promise and carry on the will of Davy D. Jones, meaning that now we apparently just have this whole new ancient powerful figure to speculate about. Who was Davy D. Jones and how did he interact with the legendary characters like Joy Boy, Lily, and Emu back in the Void Century? Was he even from the Void Century? Was he one of the 4 ancient gods? Does he predate, everything that happened and is from the first world? It's really classic One Piece. For every single new answer that Oda gives us, we just get like 5 trillion new ones. The conversation is then cut a little bit short, very rudely, because Emu decides why not make Rocks himself do the dirty work of wiping out his own family, and hits him with the good old classic Domi Reversi, one that he actually resists successfully at first, but he can only hold out so long, it seems. Once again though, it does raise some very serious questions about the limits of this very broken ability. Because so far we've seen this demonification technique work on some very broken characters. First it was the pirate captains Dory and Broggy, Giants also, and now Rocks of all people. Rocks, who we know is a master of conquerors haki. He has truly unparalleled willpower, so is it just impossible to counter Domi Reversi with haki? And if that's the case, what are the limits of Domi Reversi in general? One fan theory that's been getting a lot of traction in the community recently is that maybe Domi Reversi only works in someone's homeland. That's why the Giants are susceptible on Elbaf and the Davies are transformed here on God Valley. It would also go a long way to explaining why Joy Boy would try to make, piracy a big thing, to kind of get people as far away from the homelands as humanly possible, so they'd be pretty much impervious to Emu's control. But I've also seen some other theories claiming that maybe it doesn't work on Devil Fruit users. Whatever really ends up being true though, surely there has to be some counter to this way overpowered ability, and maybe by the time that you watch this video, we will know a little bit more, and you can let me know in the comments. After Emu gets his tendrils in rocks though, he's eventually transformed and loses his own will, or at least control over his body, which, man, like, sometimes it really sucks to be right about a theory, because I actually called this happening right towards the beginning of God Valley very early on. And I know this sounds like bragging, a little bit, but mostly I actually didn't want this to happen, because seeing it then unfold really hurts to see this legend of a man who really just wants to go and save his family forced to now hunt them down. But first, of course, he cuts loose against his own crewmates, and as if Rox wasn't already strong enough, Demon Rox is beyond terrifying. He becomes absolutely massive and just one-shots the likes of Kaido and Big Mom. However, Whitebeard at least does hold his captain at bay a little bit momentarily, which just goes to show how strong the world's strongest man really is. Next though, we find that Rox does catch up to Edis and Teach, and Edis is just devastated at what has happened to her husband. Are they married? Lover? I don't know. But she seems to know a lot about what is going on here. She comments that it was too early for him to go up against Emu, showing that she very clearly knows a lot about his plan to collect 2 particular devil fruits that are apparently required to actually take Emu down and make them vulnerable, I guess. And while I totally actually expected her to not make it out of God Valley alive, she actually surprisingly does, which means that she lives a little bit longer and can actually pass along some of that intel to baby Teach, which actually explains so much more about Blackbeard's entire deal and why he seems to know a lot more than he originally lets on. But of course, thanks to the absolute MVP of God Valley, and maybe just the MVP of One Piece overall, they're able to escape the island. I'm speaking, of course, of the Ohara patrons who get exclusive access to early chapter reviews, artwork, and other behind the scenes. Sorry for the plug, but yes, the real MVP is, of course, Bartholomew Kuma. But you guys are the MVPs to me. But with Kuma straight up yeeting Edis and Teach off the island, where did they go? Where did they end up at? Who knows? But we do know that Edis did plan to reconnect with Zbec on Lulusia of all places, which also again by itself raises a ton more questions about the Lulusia kingdom, which does not exist anymore either, but seems to be growing more and more important the more we learn about it. Emu tries to command Rox to destroy all the remaining survivors of the island, but through his tears, he actually probably uses the voice of all things to beg Garp and Roger to kill him, which again almost make things even more tragic because this proves that deep inside a Domi Reversied character, their own will still exists and they're basically observing themselves committing all these atrocities while they're all helpless to control it. I don't know what's more messed up, you know, the idea of you losing your entire free will and just being this soulless puppet, or you being captured in your own body but not being able to do anything while you're being controlled. I think the real takeaway is that Emu just continues to become more and more messed up the more we learn about them. Now, the first time we ever actually heard about God Valley, we learned that it was where Roger and Garp teamed up to defeat Roxy Zbec. We all knew it was coming, but Oda finally actually delivered on the greatest battle of the previous generation. But while that's happening, everybody else is on a real rush to get as far away from this island as humanly possible, as it really starts to crumble into ruin. Shiki boldly announces that the Rox pirates have now officially ended. Does this make him the first mate? Well, no, not at all actually, but I do love that he's confident enough to just make that decision unilaterally. And with no crew left to speak of now, Gloriosa, former Empress of Amazon Lily, hitches a ride with the Raja pirates, probably in the hope of cozying up to the captain and thinking she has a shot now that Shaggy and Rayleigh are an item, right? But Whitebeard also picks up a new crew member, it seems at least, one just as hot as Gloriosa, Polo Graham, who very much appears to be Marco's father, which means that Oda slipped in a fantastic joke right in the middle of one of One Piece's most tragic events and chapters ever. That joke, of course, being that Marco the Phoenix's full canon name is now probably officially Marco Polo. Yeah, I know. Well, the most unfortunate separation, of course, has to probably be Kaido and Big Mom. Said it before, and I'll keep saying it, even if people don't like it. I love their little brother, big sister dynamic throughout this flashback. In a different world, maybe they, stay team up, but instead they have different dreams and go their separate ways to start their individual own crews. Kaido, of course, wants to start his own crew where brutality and survival of the fittest rule, and Big Mom has like 30 kids to go raise while she starts a crew with the dream of having all the world's races sitting around one table at eye level together, and I guess paying with their soul for their freedom. I'm actually really curious about other interactions they'd had, throughout the years, because surely these two saw each other again before their team up in Wano 38 years later, right? And also, without question, the most brutal departure from God Valley has gotta be Dragons, defeated after losing Baby Shanks and Baby Shamrock and witnessing the horrors that the Marines committed on the island. He straight up takes his commanding officer hostage and forces the Marines to do something good for a change and rescue as many of the survivors as they can, and that's what I call a real revolution. Shanks, of course, being then taken to Roger's ship in the treasure chest that he, crawls into. We kind of saw that already in Film Red, the earliest glimpse of God Valley that we ever got. And as everyone else is also escaping, the Celestial Dragons also take their leave. Emu is somehow still possessing Saturn as they ride away, and they order all records of God Valley to be purged from history. In other words, it's the classic emo solution. Just take any history you don't like and just, sweep it under the rug, even if it's an entire century worth of history. Now, during a quick lull in the battle, Roger actually asks Garp to leave the Marines and join his crew. Now that they know that the true leader of the world government is like the literal devil, I guess. But Garp actually chooses to stay in order to protect people within the Marines and kind of make change from within, I guess, which is definitely a choice, even if he does decline promotions that would force him to work even more closely on the Celestial Dragons. But it's like its whole own topic, and it kind of feels like there must be more to Garp overall that we still haven't seen in the story. He must have been planning something. Now back to the fight. At first, the combined powers of Roger and Garp at full strength just couldn't do any damage to Zbec whatsoever. In order to truly counterattack his insane Conqueror's Haki that had no choice but to combine all of their reserves of Haki into one combined final ultimate attack, giving us some sick new named moves for both characters. Garp gave us a barrage of Haki-infused punches that look just like Luffy's Gatling gun, the Infinitum Explosion, and at the same time, Roger unleashes a sword slash even more powerful than Divine Departure, Hinokagutsuchi Ace, which directly translates to Fire God Ace, because Hinokagutsuchi, well, that's a fire god in Shinto, so Fire God Ace, you get it. Raising a bunch of questions also, by the way. Did he name his sword first, or was it already named Ace? And is there a god of fire in One Piece, or maybe even, the sun god named Ace in the past? And since they're wiped from the battle, it's a pretty good thing that Rayleigh and Scopper returned to the island to actually go rescue Roger. Garp got out somehow, probably with Bogart, leaving one final person to truly clean up the mess, the real champion of God Valley, Figureland Garling. Yeah, I bet you forgot about him. I know I sure did after him and his cool duck got whooped by rocks. Well, it actually turns out that he got his revenge after all, because in the 11th hour, he rose to strike down Zbec, landing the killing blow, and in the process somehow making Zebec's final moments even more sad, since he didn't even get taken out by those two that he respected the most. And then a huge lingering question, of course, was laid to rest. Where did God Valley go? After all this destruction, what became of this island struck from history by the god Emu? Well, it sank into the ocean, never to be seen again. Or, well, maybe that's not the case. There's something that's been very interesting to me, and that's just how many things about God Valley line up perfectly with Thriller Bark. Rock's pirate zombies, Perona's devil fruit, and even that doll that is designed just like Zbec. It's really made me wonder, did good old Kozuki Moria get his grubby hands on God Valley after all somehow? Now, how would he have even raised it out of the ocean? Well, he does have oars on his side, a massive continent puller, so raising an entire island up from the ocean floor isn't that absurd when you really think about it. Big Moria turning God Valley into Thriller Bark seems more likely now more than ever, I think, and if you're wondering where I'm even getting a wild idea like that, well, between the old Rock's pirate zombies and Perona's devil fruit appearing, it's kind of feeling like this theory is getting more and more likely, especially with Moria being confirmed to be a Kozuki member, so you can check out my full thoughts on this theory right here. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. This was a fun one, and thanks so much to all of our Patreons. Again, we have a lot of really great benefits there if you want to support the channel. It really, really means the world. Thanks if you already do it, and I will see you in the next video.